Hi friends, welcome to App Coders. Today we are going to create demo application by using Combine and SwiftUI, and we are going to follow MVVM architecture. If you want to know about the basics of the Combine and SwiftUI, please check last 3 videos within my channel. I will also post link within the description of this video. I suggest you to guys please go through those videos, then come to this video later on. So in today's video, we are going to create a list by using SwiftUI, and we are going to create a rows, and we will display those rows within the list with the help of the sections, and we will make actual API call by using Combine. And whatever the data we are fetching from the API call, we are going to display in the list, and of course we are going to use MVVM architecture. So guys, this video is going to be little bit longer because we will have to create the separate service class, view model, and the view, and the interrelation between them. So guys, let's start. To start with, I have created the new project. As the new project comes with this hello world text. So firstly, let's create the folders based on the MVVM architecture. So let's create view model, and service. And let's move this view, a content view, inside the view folder. So yes, in this project we are going to use an API to fetch the data from the server. So we are going to use the free API. So here we have the JSON placeholder. So this provides the free API which has some dummy records. So it has 100 posts. This is the data of the API. Copy paste this data, and here we have the another tool, QuickType.io, which converts your JSON object into the model object. So either if you want to create a struct or the class, you can modify it from here, and you can choose the language as well. As I need in Swift, so I'm okay with the Swift. So here we have the model. So let's copy paste this model and create new file within the model. New file, placeholder, response model, and paste the code here. So our model is ready. So this is our response model, and it should also confirm from the identifiable, as we need this protocol to uniquely identify elements within the list, and we already have this ID identifier to uniquely identify all the rows within the list. So now let's move to the content view and delete all these, as we do not need this, as we are going to create our list here. So let's add our navigation view, list within the navigation view. So to get the data for the list, we need ViewModel class. So let's create our ViewModel class here. Named content view model. So here we have class content view model, and it should confirm the observable object protocol, as we are going to observe this view model to update our UI. So let's observable object and let's add an array for the with the published property. That published where array items, and it should be of type placeholder response model, and let's add one initializer as well. So here let's create one method which will provide some dummy data just for displaying the UI. So let's add one function get data. So let's call this from initializer. Let item is placeholder response model item. Type id1 and test and test description array item dot append item. So here we have the ViewModel class with an observable object and published property. So now let's move to our view and accept these changes. So let's create the ViewModel object here in the view. Let ViewModel as content ViewModel, and it should be observed object, as we are going to listen the changes in the ViewModel. Sorry, observed, it should be observed object. Yes, now this should fine, and we need to pass the content view model object. Why is it giving an error? Can we apply it? Okay, it should be where. Now this should work fine. Okay, so now let's we have created the list. Now let's create the row item within the list. So I can say list section. So let's create private extension for this content view and add one property where this list section, and it should be of type some view. It should return us here some view, and we have created one section here. So now we are displaying the list section in the list, but now the list section is empty, so we need to create one view so we can display it in our list section. So now let's create another view. Named it should be of SwiftUI view. Named it as placeholder list row. So now here let's remove this hello world and create one element. Let item This should be of type placeholder response element, as it should receive this item to display it. And in the body, let's create h stack and then v stack, and display those attributes here. In the text, we are going to display item dot title, and let's add some attributes like font or the identifiers. Let it should be of title, and let's add some color as well. Foreground color, named it as red. Let's add another text for displaying the body attribute, item dot body, and let's add some space between these two texts with a spacer. Now we need to provide the it should be spacer. Now this should work fine, and we need to provide the item attribute in the preview as well. So placeholder response model item, placeholder response model item, user ID 1, title some dummy text, and body dummy body. Now we can see how our view appears. This is failing due to the error here. Okay, let's fix this first, because as we created the view model object in the content view, so we need to create and pass the object from here. So let model or view model is the content view model, and pass the view model. Okay, now this should work fine. And here we have the row. So let's see how our row UI appear. So this is our list row. This is far apart due to this spacer, but don't worry, it will look fine in our list. So now let's move to the content view and pass this row that we just created. So let's create for each loop, for each with the data and content. Data should be from this view model dot array items, and this is the trailing closure. We can simply write this and accept item in, and pass this placeholder list row, placeholder list row, and it is accepting the item. So now, so here this is our list, and let's add some navigation title to the list as well. Navigation title, and we can add content list. Like right now we have just one row within our view model, so let's add another row as well, test1 and description test1. So sorry, it should be item 2, and we need to append this item 2 in the array as well. So, and it should be uniquely identified as well. So let's see the two rows within our list. So this is working fine and working as expected. Now let's convert this list from dummy data to the actual API data. Now we are going to create a service class and we are going to make the actual API call. So let's create a new service class, name as content service, and let's create a class content service, and next define a function that will make an API call. So let's define a function here, get placeholder data, and this function will provide us a future. Future is a type of publisher that eventually returns a single value and then finishes or fails. So it has two parameters. First is the response and second is the error. So future work on the promises. So we'll see in a minute how we are dealing with the future, and let's return future from here. So future is available only in Combine. So let's import Combine here as well. And instead of passing an error, let's define our own errors. So create a new file, create placeholder error, and define one enum here, placeholder error is of type error, and case network error, description, so like as of type string, and another error we can define is the parsing error. So we define our own two errors and we defined our own error type, which is the placeholder error. So let's, instead of error, pass it placeholder error. Now firstly we need the URL to get the data. So guard let URL from string else return. So we need some string. So let's copy paste the string from, so this is, here we have the URL from which we get all the dummy data. So let's copy paste data here and return some error in case if there is not a valid URL. So let's return promise dot failure, and here we can return the parsing, or we can return the network error, and we can mention it invalid URL. So here we have seen how we return the promise here. So promises are basically helpful in the asynchronous programming. It will eventually result a failure or a success. So here we have seen we are returning promise as a failure and we are returning an error. Next we are going to make an API call with the help of the URL session.shared data task with publisher. We are getting here, as we can see, Apple has extended its support for the publisher, in the existing URL session class. So we are getting this method here, data task with publisher, and we are going to pass the URL. And by default, as the URL session is working on the background thread, so to receive the response on the main thread, we are going to add a method receive on dispatch queue dot main, and then we are using try map here to check all the values, to check whether we have a response or the data from the server. So it has two parameters, data and a response n, and here we need to check for the data let response. If the response has HTTP URL response, then it should be a valid response, and response dot status code should be greater than equal to 200, and response dot status code should be less than 300. Otherwise it should be an error. So return, so like try map is throwing an error. Try map is traversing the data, but it also throws an error. So let's throw error from here, placeholder error dot network error, invalid response. Otherwise return data. Now as we received the data from the server, now we are going to decode it. So we need to decode in this model object placeholder response model with a JSON decoder. Now we are going to sync. Now we are going to subscribe the response. As we created our publisher here with a URL session.share.data publisher. Now we are subscribing it with the help of sync. So here we have created the subscriber. If you want to know more about publishers and subscriber, please check my previous video in the channel, and the link is also posted in the description here as well. So it is going to return us a completion here, and here we have the receive value, which is the actual value here. So sync has two blocks. In the first block, where we are checking whether we have a completed or the failure event, and in the receive value we are going to check the actual value which we get from the server. So in the response here, so we need to return the success in this. So here promise return promise dot success, and we are passing the response here. And in the error, in this first block we are going to check our errors. So if case let is a failure dot failure is of type, so we are checking here completion. If we are checking whether there is a failure in the completion, then we are returning the error from here. So here we have switch error case if the error is decoding error, then we should return promise here as a failure dot parsing error fail to parse data. we need to handle a default case as well, otherwise we will get an error. Default promise dot failure and network error, not able to get data otherwise. Okay, so we have seen, so as we are not using any error, so let's remove this. Okay, so here you can see we getting an error. So yeah, oh, we failed to add the self here while decoding, and we created the subscriber through the sync. The subscriber will remains in the memory, so whenever the publisher produces the value, the subscriber receives it through subscription. Then what about the deinitialization part? So we need to store the subscriber in some variable, so whenever required we can cancel it or we can erase all the data from the memory. So let's create one variable here. Let cancelable, and it should be of type set any cancelable, and we need to store the subscriber through store in and accessing cancelable. Now this should work fine. It should be var, not the let. So here we make an API call from the URL session with the data task publisher API, and we are receiving on the main thread, and then we are checking the response which we got from the server, and then we decode it and in our model object, and then we are syncing through the subscriber. We are receiving the value and we are returning our value through promises, and we are using store in to store our subscribers so we can cancel at any time. So now next move to our view model. So let's replace this dummy data with the actual API call data. So let's create one more function to get the data from the server. Get server data, and we need to make the service object here. Let service as content service, and in the initializer we are self dot service equal to service. We initialize the service object, and by using this service object, let's call the method get placeholder data dot. As we know, this placeholder data, this method is returning the future publisher here. So this future publisher has either response or the error. So how can we receive? So here we need to create one more subscriber as well to receive the data from the future publisher. So let's create one more subscriber here with a sync. So this sync has two parameters. One is the receive completion and another is the receive value. As we previously seen, in the receive value we are getting our actual value, and in this completion we are handling either the failure or the finish. So let's do it. Completion, and here we have the response, and we need to, here we are getting our response. So here we have this array item equal to response, and it should be of the self, as we are dealing within the closure. So we should need write weak self as well, and this should be of the optional type. So this is working fine. So let's create switch here to handle the finish and the error scenario. Switch completion, case one is the failure, let error, So, and another case we have the finished. So here print, right now I am just printing it as I am not handling any finish or the error scenario here. So let's completion, and here again print the error. So what error we are getting? So in our view model, so let's call this method from here as well. And as we created the subscriber as well, so we need to store in some variable. So let's copy paste this as we did the same thing here, and let's store in the cancel label. So let's run this. We need to import combine. Hopefully, so we might get a couple of errors. Yes, we need to pass service here as well. So let's create service object, content service, and pass it in the initializer of the view model object. So now this should work fine. So let's run it. There is one more error we see, so it needs service here as well. So content service, just need the pass service object, as this is just a preview. Now this is successfully run. So here we have the list of the data which is coming from the server, which is looking nice. So in this video we have seen, like, we are displaying the list with the help of the SwiftUI, and we are getting the data from the server by using the combine, and we are following the MVVM architecture in the entire project. So guys, hope you learned something new today. If you like the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.